The PRISM spying scandal has re-energized calls for a European intelligence agency as an alternative to U.S. intelligence. Along with satellites and drones, it could strengthen Europe's effort to create a common security and defense policy. But are European leaders ready to pool their resources, their money, and their secrets to do it? Could it be just another layer of EU bureaucracy? Or with the European External Action Service already doing its intel gathering, is it time to build on that to ensure Europe's common security? Hello, I'm Chris Burns, and welcome to The Network. Hard talk with a matrix of newsmakers. Wired into this edition, here at the European Parliament in Brussels, is Sergio Carrera, Senior Research Fellow and Head of the Justice and Home Affairs Program at the Center for European Policy Studies, or CEPS. Sophie in 't Veld. She's Vice Chair of the European Parliament's Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. She's spokesperson on EU intelligence and surveillance for the group of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe, or ALDE. And in Copenhagen, Tarja Kronberg. She's also a member of the European Parliament and a member of the group of the Greens European Free Alliance. Thanks all for joining us. Please, let's go to this first question, starting with Sergio. Sergio, do we really need a European intelligence agency as a counterweight to U.S. intelligence, as Madam Reding has said?
Well, I think this is not really a feasible solution. What is absolutely necessary in light of the revelations is common standards, common European standards, and a model setting what is legitimate, what is not legitimate in what concerns intelligence services work inside the European Union, which at the moment doesn't exist. We do already have a couple of agencies at the EU level, Europol and INSEM. We need better oversight of these two.
Okay, Sophie, what do you think? Do we need this common intelligence agency?
Well, I think ultimately it will be a part of an integral foreign and security policy. And there is already a kind of embryonic security or intelligence agency. It's called INSEN, Intelligence Center. However, it's not embedded in any way in the treaty, so there's no proper legal base. It's completely unclear what the legal base is. And there is no proper democratic oversight. Okay, so if we're going to set up something, it has to be properly legally embedded.
So, Tarja, do you think it's needed, and do you think we need more clarity on this?
I think what we need is a discussion on a European intelligence agency. I think we need a discussion on the balance between security and privacy in Europe. I think this is in a different place than in the US, where security is the priority. And I think this question of privacy and security, the balance, we need to discuss, we need to also have common ideas, common standards.
Let's hear from British Conservative MEP Geoffrey Van Orden, who says the call for an EU intelligence agency shows what he calls the EU's dangerous ambitions. He says the EU has no business meddling in defense and intelligence matters. What do you think, Sergio?
Well, I think that the European Union is already playing a role in the field of security, internal and external security. And what is absolutely necessary is that the Union sticks to its values and principles, especially democracy and human rights, when confronting these kind of comments.
Okay, but, you know, some people argue that if Europe had more information, intel information, during the Balkan War, during the Gulf War, perhaps things might have been different. What do you think, Sophie?
Well, that's difficult to say in hindsight, but if we are going for a full-fledged foreign and security policy, then I suppose this will be part of it. Incidentally, I think it's funny that it should be a UK Conservative to oppose this, because it's actually the Brits who are always pushing very hard for security policies and intelligence gathering.
But there's a question of national sovereignty, and it does seem that the EU 28 are not on the same page for that. What do you think, Tarja?
First of all, the common security and defense policy has been established in the Lisbon Treaty. So I think this view is his own, basically. And the question is, what kind of questions are in the common defense and security policy? And as the European security strategy also already takes terrorism as one of the largest threats, I think we need to deal with it seriously and look at what is the common European understanding of this threat.
Sergio, this could be maybe in the discussion among the European leaders during the summit this month. They're going to be talking about this common security and defense policy. Don't you think that should be part of that conversation?
I mean, absolutely. I think these conversations must take into account the issues which have been raised from a Justice and Home Affairs point of view. Common data protection standards are absolutely necessary before going into external security debates. And coming back to your previous comment, more information is not always the answer. More intelligence is not always the most effective solution to the challenges that Europe and other countries are facing. What we absolutely need is to come back to democracy, democratic rule of law principles, which at the moment are at stake.
Okay, well, exactly. Sophie, how do you establish a European intelligence agency and keep it from becoming just another big brother?
Well, the problem is that there is already such a thing, but we just don't know exactly what it's doing. We also know that national intelligence agencies are working closely together, but we have no clue what they're doing.
So do you say the European Parliament would like to get more information on this?
Well, I actually think that this fledgling intelligence agency should become an official one and then also be subject to adequate democratic scrutiny so that we know what is going on. Because it's not by creating an intelligence agency that we create a big brother. It's by leaving this foggy, unclear situation that we currently have where there is no oversight.
Tarja, what do you think about that big brother aspect?
Well, I think we are already on our way to kind of a control society. So therefore, I think it is important to discuss this question of balance between security and privacy. And I think we no doubt need intelligent intelligence. And I think whatever the solution, it has to be transparent and open so that there is a democratic oversight over it.
Okay, but Sergio, don't you think this is the devil that's in the details? You've got different governments, different traditions, different histories here among the EU 28. How are they going to get together on the same page and say, this is the kind of intelligence we got to do without invading people's privacy here in Europe?
Yes, I think this is a central point. Is this really desirable that we go ahead on intelligence cooperation where there are so many answers still open and to be tackled from the perspective, for instance, of data protection and checks and balances of intelligence services at the national level. So I think that before setting up ambitious and strategic agendas on common foreign and security policy, we must answer the dilemmas which exist in current European Union member states.
Sophie, couldn't this be the stumbling block? But shouldn't it be surpassed in some way, because otherwise it looks like Europe's going to remain beholden or dependent on U.S. intelligence?
Well, but, I agree with Mr. Carrera in one aspect, and that is that democratic oversight on national security agencies has failed, and that needs to be strengthened. However, we see that there is already considerable cooperation at international level, at European level as well. But that is because it has no legal base, because we pretend it's not there. There is no democratic oversight.
Okay, Tarja, do you think it should remain just on an ad hoc international level and not on an EU level?
No, I think it's important. There is this international cooperation and there is the EAS who has this kind of activities already ongoing. So I think this has to be looked closely through, and I think we need EU cooperation on this. The fact that 28 countries have different views is not an argument for not having it. I think it is necessary for the 28 countries to talk about this and to find a common solution, a legal base.
Should there maybe be a bit more oversight by the European Parliament as there is congressional oversights in the States, Sergio?
Yes, I think it will be very important that the Parliament sets up a permanent committee looking at what Member States' intelligence authorities and communities are doing and their cooperation with EU agencies such as Europol and INCEN. There is an oversight gap which must be also addressed, and the European Parliament is positioned in a unique role in this regard together with national parliaments.
Sophie, do you think there should be more Parliament oversight?
Yes, ultimately, if there will be such an EU intelligence agency, then clearly there is a role for the European Parliament to exercise oversight. But we would need new powers for that, because, for example, we're currently conducting an inquiry into the mass surveillance, and we have very, very little means. It's very, very difficult to get at the truth.
Tarja, the last question. Do you think Europe is ready to rewrite the Lisbon Treaty to work that in, to work intelligence in?
I think this should be a discussion. It's on the civil liberties side, and I think the Parliament should have more to say in this question.
Tarja, thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of our guests, Sergio Carrera, Sophie Intveld, and Tarja Kronberg. I'm Chris Burns, and until next time, thanks for connecting with The Network.